MagMongoSlade.
Bruh, Rhea Ripley, Naomi, and Bianca Belair are twerking at house shows. That's what they're doing. They're having fun, man. They're slapping each other's asses and they're twerking at house shows. We're being subjected to, on television, cable that you pay for. You're being subjected to checks, notes, Otis versus Chad Gable. Otis versus Chad Gable. That's what you get. In the house show, Rollins is working. Punk is doing earthquake spots. On Raw, you get a Dakota Kai match and an attack by Pete Dunne, who attacked R-Truth. I mean, we getting spoiled, bruh. We just getting spoiled. I don't get this. Triple H has given up the last 2 months. He's just thrown the last 2 months in the garbage. Either the shows are taped or the shows are live, but they're trash. This Raw was trash. Now, everybody is hyped up off the gas of the last segment, which is, right. But for the most part, this show was basura, and I don't even understand why we're watching it. If you were somewhat interested in Netflix Raw, let's say you're a lapsed fan, and you say, hey, I may watch Raw next week. What's going to happen? Well, there's no Roman Reigns on this show. There's nothing. They have vignettes to try to sell you on that. Rollins and Punk, they did a good job of selling their match. But what else are they selling? Nothing. They're just hoping you tune in for Rollins and Punk. And I guess they're going to try to do a hard sell for Netflix on SmackDown. But my God, what a disaster this show is. I guess we got to go through it. Contractually obligated, even though there's no literal contract, for me to review Monday Night Raw. So this is from Raw, the last Raw of 2024, the last Raw on USA Network. There was a compilation video for this Raw as well. So we're going to talk about that and the rest of the show. December 30th, 2024. We start the show with the New Day. They come out, try to talk, get booed out of the building. Jey Uso appears, says New Day sucks. Then he starts going into his promo about how Solo is going to get handled by Roman, but he's going to handle the Drew McIntyre issue. He calls out Drew McIntyre. He gets Solo Sikoa on the screen instead. Solo gives us some crap about how Jey should have joined his bloodline before Drew McIntyre attacks Jey Uso. There's a light brawl before Drew gets the upper hand. I think he claymores him in the face. Continues to beat his ass. Then they set up the match, Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre, next week on Raw. So they put that on the Netflix show. Nothing on this show again. But they put that also on next week's show. Fine. I really don't have anything to say on the subject of Drew McIntyre and Jey Uso. We know what it's about, and it is what it is. But my issue with this is that this entire segment took 15 minutes. The first quarter hour of the show was New Day walking around getting booed, not being able to get any words out. Jey Uso's extremely long entrance that featured no physicality. He didn't work anybody. All he said was New Day sucks, and then New Day got disgusted and they left. And then he had some physicality with Drew McIntyre. I don't get it and I don't care. New Day would have a confrontation with Rey Mysterio later where they mocked Rey giving a pep talk to Otis after Otis lost to Chad Gable. And Rey says that he basically challenged them to a tag team match. And then New Day mocked all the different members of the LWO, saying that the fake Rey Mysterio, hat guy, no hat guy, and the 12-year-old girl. Now, there was another video for Pentagon. They did a cool graphic that's basically the outline of his mask for their Netflix thing. And since this tag team match is next week, is it possible that they're going to, instead of using Dragon Lee, they're going to use Pentagon as Rey Mysterio's partner? I think that's a huge mistake. I don't think he should have anything to do with Rey Mysterio. It should be possible for you to be Mexican on the roster and not have to be partners or opponents with Rey Mysterio. I'm sorry. I'm starting to get woke on this. All right. Pentagon needs to come. He needs to show up. I 100% support him being there, but he needs to be as far away from Rey Mysterio as possible, at least for the first couple of weeks. Let him establish himself. And then if you want to have them two feud on like a pay-per-view or a big TV special or something like that, fine. But he needs to, define himself away from Rey. That's been a big problem with Dragon Lee. He's in Rey Mysterio's shadow. They don't know what else to do with him, so it's kind of like, oh, we'll just slide you over here with Rey. This is why, Vince didn't do factions. We're going to talk about Vince a lot in this video. He didn't really do factions because you hide people in factions. Dragon Lee has almost been in WWE on the main roster almost a full year. Can you believe that? Almost a full year. How many matches has he had on TV? You could probably count them on both hands. He's right now the Twitter champion, I think. Maybe. And he's an incredibly talented young dude. Why is he in Rey Mysterio's shadow instead of doing cool stuff somewhere else? I don't know. I don't get it. I get that you might want to give him the rub, but he's not getting the rub because he's not doing anything. He's just standing there, just like the rest of them. And then, it's not like Rey is grooming him, Rey is his manager, or anything like that. He's standing there just like Joaquin Wilder standing there. He's not benefiting from this. He's just there. It's stupid. So I don't want that for Pentagon. Pentagon's a little bit older than Dragon Lee anyway. So he needs to go out and define himself. So I think Dragon Lee should be the partner for Rey in this tag team match. It should not be Pentagon. I don't want Pentagon to have anything to do with Rey. I don't even want Pentagon attacking Rey. I don't want that either. I think he should define himself. So I don't want any parts of that. I don't like that idea. Let's move on from that. Okay. They had Chad Gable defeat Otis. The crowd was weirdly into this. Now, this, of course, was damn near a year build-up. That's probably why they were into it. But I could tell you I was reading Black Panther comics during this. I didn't care about this at all. You had waited too long to get me to care about this. And look, Otis is one of those guys that he's so underrated that people love Otis, but he's never going to be anybody's favorite wrestler. And you can't really push him because he's chubby and funny. He's like the Chris Farley of WWE. I guess maybe it'll be a decade. He may end up getting a Mark Henry-like title run and probably be an Intercontinental Championship or something like that. But he got the people's attention. Otis gets a reaction when he comes out. My question is, why are they still the Alpha Academy? This is what I mean by Triple H being extremely lazy. Why is Otis still hanging out with Tozawa and Maxine Dupree? And why are they still calling themselves the Alpha Academy? Why? You can't come up with anything else? Even if it was just Otis and Tozawa or whatever. Or she could rebrand them or something. Why are they calling themselves Alpha Academy? That's so stupid. That's the name Chad Gable gave to them. Why are they still using that name? It's ridiculous. And I'm putting more thought into it than Triple H did. They had a vignette for Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan where they said this has to end, which I agreed with. I agreed so much that I wish that this was some kind of gimmick match to almost guarantee that it would be over. Basically, it should be like loser leaves or something. Because they're doing this transitional portal or whatever the hell anyway. It should just be loser leaves. You know, whoever loses got to go. So they're not going to do that, though. I don't know why. Pete Dunne attacked R-Truth by yelling that he's nobody's butch. I can't believe we're trapped in this odyssey all of a sudden. You know, look, I like R-Truth as much as everybody else. I don't like Pete Dunne at all. Triple H he's trying to rehab Pete Dunne. I don't know why. He's wasting time. You know, this is not an every week thing, but who cares about this? You know, does anybody still care about the whole Butch thing? He was more over as Butch. People liked him more as Butch. Nobody cares about him now. So that's sad times. Also, on the I'm just going to attack somebody and disappear. Ludwig Kaiser wanted to fight Braun Breaker. Instead, he got attacked by Sheamus. So there was a bunch of segments on this show where people just got attacked and then nothing else happened. That's just lazy as well. Because it pretends that you had something planned that was then interrupted. Or this is just a lazy way to get action on the show. They're going to brawl. How many brawls can you have on the show? How many brawls could you possibly do on one episode? And it's only 2 hours. Ridiculous. So they did the Women's Intercontinental Championship tournament. The semis and, the semis, because there's nothing else. Dakota Kai defeated Zoe Stark. They forced me to sit through this. I noted upon peeking at the screen that Zoe Stark is getting a little heavy. Not saying she's fat. I'm saying she's getting a little bit heavy, and she's certainly heavier than she was a year or two ago. Certainly. Remember when she was in NXT, she was shredded, you know? And she was much faster, and she moved better, and everything. Now, I know it's only been 2 years or something like that. She's getting kind of chunky. You know, she's still very athletic. And, you know, she could just still do all the rolls and everything that she was doing, springboards and everything. But she's a little wider than she was before. And I don't think she's that old. I remember I thought she was 40 some odd years old. I would have given her an excuse. But I've been suitably chasing that she's probably still in her 20s. You know, probably late 20s, maybe early 30s. So she certainly should not be as chunky as she is now. And Dakota Kai, she just sucks. So, I mean, it is what it is. And then on the other side, Lyra Valkyria defeated Io Sky in a singles match. She won by a roll-up pin. And you know what? Didn't hate that match. Thought the match was pretty good, actually. Lyra Valkyria is a hell of a performer. Io Sky, of course, is a hell of a performer. You wouldn't know anything about them because they didn't. You only have 4 women in this tournament. Instead of hyping this thing up, again, simple storytelling. Just tell us what the title means to you. Do you remember what Lyra Valkyria's voice sounds like? Probably not, right? She didn't have her full gimmick when she came out either. She just came out in her trunks. Usually she's got like a cape or, you know, a hood or something like that to kind of go with her character. But nope, it just threw out there in her gear like a jabroni. So the entirety of at least trying to make her seem like a bigger star. Nope. Yeah, nope, no point in doing that either. I mean, why should anybody care about this then? It's just people nobody care about. Dakota Kai, who's over on the internet, who's probably going to win this title because she's over on the internet. And then Lyra Valkyria, who's a much superior performer, but she's never allowed to talk, and she's never allowed to actually do anything on these shows. She is in the same boat as Dragon Lee. She's almost been on this main roster a full calendar year, and she has not done anything. Nothing. Has she even wrestled for the belt yet? I think she probably has. But she keeps getting close. She gets in these tournaments and she gets to the finals or the semifinals or whatever and she loses. And then you still don't know anything about her. She was in the King of Queen of the Ring tournament, right? You know just as much about her today as you knew back in June when that damn tournament happened. That's poor storytelling. And she's a new talent. She's a new talent. And you don't know nothing about this girl. This is the girl, again, where Becky Lynch went on her sojourn to NXT to put this girl over. And then she got brought up to the main roster and then jobbed out immediately and then thrown to the back burner. If Vince had done something like this, people will be complaining. They be bitching, they be moaning, they be crying, they be talking about how Vince don't know anything about talent, or how he's ruining all these wrestlers. Look at all these people that Triple H is bringing up from NXT and doing absolutely nothing with them. Nothing. These people are healthy. It'd have been one thing, like I think Kiana James is injured, but Lyra Valkyria is there every week. She's wrestling on main event. She's wrestling on main event. Like, what are you doing? Like, why? Why are you doing this? It's literally stupid. So now they're about to have this useless Intercontinental title that's probably going to go to Dakota Kai just so her fans can shut the fuck up. All those people who watch her on Twitch. She can cry and pretend like she actually, got this push because she deserved it. When this is the first year since she's been under contract, and she's been under contract since like 2017, that she hasn't had a torn ACL or MCL or whatever. And she's probably torn them shits up to the point where she can't tear them no more. They probably need to amputate her legs the next time she have a leg injury. We have evolved beyond the need for Dakota Kai. And I don't care what Diva Dirt fan is listening to this and saying, well, Dakota Kai, she's so nice to everybody. I don't give a shit. This ain't about being nice. It's about making money and building new audiences. Dakota Kai is over with internet fans. She's not over in the building. Nobody cares about her when her music plays. She's never been involved in a storyline that didn't involve EO. Not on the main roster. So there's that. So they're going to have Dakota Kai versus Lyra Valkyria, two women you know nothing about, in the main event, for the Intercontinental Championship, the Women's Intercontinental title. Good job, Triple H. You're such a great booker. You're the Booker of the Year. This is easily the promotion of the year, but that's not because of anything he's doing. It's because AEW insists on taking cyanide capsules every week. So the War Raiders and Damian Priest defeated the Judgment Day. They changed the Judgment Day's theme song. I don't care about this either, because of course the three giants are going to beat up the three tiny men. And then the Damian Priest Finn Balor stuff is going to continue. The Finn Balor passive aggressive stuff towards Liv Morgan is going to continue. And when Joe Tessitore says that this thing between Damian Priest and Finn Balor goes back to SummerSlam, I almost wanted to throw my TV. Not because of anything that Joe Tessitore said, just the fact that he reminded me that these two guys have been feuding since August. They've been feuding since August. Does anything actually end on this program? Why are they still feuding? It's been 4 months. Why are they still feuding? This is ridiculous. The idea that, one of the many things that people supposedly hated is how Vince would just drop angles. Sometimes, I realize today, sometimes you got to drop an angle, Sometimes you just can't keep going back to things, You go back to things that are hot. You go back to things that are interesting. You don't go back to Pete Dunne and R-Truth. You don't go back to that. You really don't need to go back to Otis and Chad Gable when you didn't touch it for weeks and weeks and weeks. You really don't need to go back to that. Some things you just pretend we did something that we didn't do and you just move on, I would rather you do that than continue these things to last forever. Now, there was a Raw on USA compilation video that they put out where they did their very mighty best to minimize any videos of Vince McMahon. He was there for the Tyson and Austin segment, but they cut out pretty much anything that involved Vince. They did a pretty good job of highlighting some AEW talent. Jericho was prominently featured. Mercedes / Sasha Banks was prominently featured. Edge was even featured. He was getting beat up, but he was featured. So they didn't try to avoid the people who are in AEW, but they did try to avoid Vince. Even when they had the beer segment when everybody got sprayed with beer, they didn't show Shane and Vince, who was in the ring getting sprayed by beer, which is odd. Now, they didn't, again, it's not a complete Benoit, because again, he was there for the Tyson and Austin segment. They just decided that was going to be the only time they showed him on screen. So I guess that's the only time he ever did anything on this show. Despite the fact that he has not been charged in any crimes and he's been getting investigated for over a year. But we realize now that as wacky and over the top as Vince was, as you know, as comedic, and sometimes there were too many sprinkles on that ice cream, that's infinitely better than this incredibly horribly bland product that WWE. Sometimes things being too sweet can be just as bad as things being not sweet enough. And there would be episodes of Monday Night Raw, there would be peaks and valleys where his chaos would go a little far. It'd be a talking segment that goes 20 minutes and 15 of it is not funny. But then there would be a segment that strikes gold, and it's short. It's about 10 minutes, maybe 15. And it's just a guy out there with a guitar, or it's just, somebody having fun on the microphone. And those things last forever. And you have fun with those segments. In Triple H's WWE, if it doesn't involve like the top guys who are already, top guys, the chances are you're not going to care about what's happening. So, rightfully so, people were very excited about Punk and Rollins going at each other. As they should have been. It was a pretty good segment where both guys got some pretty good jabs in. Most of the jabs were predictable because this was stuff that they were saying to each other before. But Rollins kind of went to the next level, and I'll say what I didn't like. Well, I'll give both perspectives, and then I'll say what I didn't like. That way it'll be cleaner. So Seth Rollins, he talks about CM Punk taking his ball and going home. He wanted the company to die. He's the real revolutionary because he stayed and he fought. He twisted CM Punk's words, where CM Punk at one point in time said you can't engage in a revolution from your couch. That's why he came back to WWE at one point before he quit again in 2014. So he kind of twisted that. I thought that was pretty good. He says that his wife is gone to raise a baby, but CM Punk don't know anything about that. He said that CM Punk went home and then he went on his friend's podcast, dug a hole, tried to destroy the WWE, hated this place, wanted this place to die. And then he took a big chunk of change to go join the competition. And how did that work out for you? So then CM Punk wanted some credit for Seth Rollins even being there, saying he loved the job, but he hated the boss. Says that the boss loved Seth Rollins. He used his old Paragon of Virtue line again that he used against against Drew McIntyre. What Paragon of Virtue told you I took my ball and went home? So he didn't abandon the fans. He came back because the fans chanted his name, mostly during Seth Rollins' promo segments, and then promised he's going to make a whole lot of money on Netflix beating up Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins' closing line was that CM Punk is a cancer. He's a cancer to the locker room, a cancer to Seth Rollins' brain, and a cancer to this here business. Very strong segment. I really liked this segment. It was really good. They did a good job of setting up the two as similar but dissimilar, which is what I said they should do. Punk and Rollins come from the same place. They don't have that Ring of Honor background. Rollins is a little bit more corporate, a little bit more accepting of the corporate culture than Punk was. And that was Punk's bone of contention. You're a bootlicker. You're a corporate stooge. I'm the real revolutionary because I walked out like Stone Cold Steve Austin walked out, like Roddy Piper walked out, like all the greats who left before me, I left too. And Seth Rollins sort of tweaked this by saying, of course, you can't lead a revolution from your couch. I stayed, I fought, I won. This place is better because of people like me. I kept this place alive. It was very much a FTR bald kind of situation, but it was Seth Rollins, and I don't like this. I like that they played into it because that's the stereotype that Rollins has. is that he's a stooge. Yeah, he's a corporate guy. WWE corporate loves them some Seth Rollins. He got so successful because the company was behind him. And they just basically tried to juxtapose that from CM Punk's perspective. It was that it was Vince who liked Seth Rollins. Even though Seth Rollins is also a Triple H guy, right? But the issue is to put the heat on Vince. So even though Vince was kind of still there when Punk showed up, this is a work, right? When he came back, Vince was kind of still there. The idea is to make Rollins the heel, or at least to put him in the same camp, saying, oh, you were picked by the old heads, you know, the paragon of virtue. He loved you. He didn't like me. He hated me. And but us, the fans, are supposed to sympathize with Punk because we're supposed to hate Vince too. So we're supposed to be like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're a stooge, Rollins. Because he did the same thing with Drew McIntyre, right? When Drew McIntyre was like, I was the chosen one. And then CM Punk was like, what paragon of virtue told you you were the chosen one? Huh? Say his name, huh? It's just an easy way of getting heat. You know? It's a good, perfect line to throw in there. Because so far, the guys that he's worked with has been Vince's guys. You know? Vince wanted Rollins in the spot. Vince wanted Drew McIntyre as a top guy. So it's working out in the overall arc of the CM Punk return is that he's being brought back to this place with all this negative energy that was there. And there's a lot of resentment from people who stayed and became top guys and felt like Punk was trying to hold them down, you know, or trying to take opportunities away from them. And this fits into that overall narrative, you know? So this is good. This was great. You know, the idea that Rollins talks about Punk not having any kids, that was fun. That was really fun. I like that because Punk is way too old to not have any kids. I'm pretty sure he's going to have some kind of response to that at some point, but never mind that. I think they both got some pretty good jabs in. Rollins actually was better, I think. And I think he was more passionate and seemingly angrier. I think he kind of overwhelmed Punk this time, which is odd for me to say because generally speaking, I think Punk is a better promo than Rollins. But I think this is how Rollins feels. And so it was easier for him to get into that mode. And they probably talked some of this stuff out beforehand, clearly, but he had a lot more to get off his chest than Punk did. And just basically throwing these things up in each other's faces was fine. Now, my only issue is I'm not really a big fan of corporate stooge Rollins. I'm not a big fan of WWE following in the footsteps of AEW where this guy's got to protect the business. He's got to protect the company. It's like, who gives a shit about any of that stuff? I don't want to hear any rah-rah speeches about WWE. And to be quite honest, that's not a WWE strong suit anyway. Whenever they've tried to do that stuff, you stand up for WWE or anything like that, it comes across as being extremely cringe. WWE works as the promotion that is willing to highlight their own evils. You know, go ahead and boo us for some of the stuff that we do. That empowers the fans that they're not running away from stuff. How terrible Vince is. You know, Vince will go out there and be god awful and then let you boo him, call him an asshole, throw stuff at him. You know, he shoves his head up Big Show's ass or something like that. You know, that is what WWE is. WWE is always a heel promotion. And it works. It doesn't harm the company's image at all because everybody realizes it's the show. And sometimes it's actually quite liberating that the talent can go out there and express that they hate something about the company or they hate, you know, Vince himself. And they can just go out there and put it all out on the line. Like when Vince even allowed JR to air his grievances, to go out there. I think this was 96 after he had fired JR. He let JR go out there and shoot on him. He let Jeff Jarrett go out, and Jeff Jarrett of all people, he let Jeff Jarrett go out there and shoot on him. You know, because it was better for the show that if the talent has something that they really want to express, and it's something that the internet has heard, about, and you can work it into the business, go for it. Nobody's going to buy WWE as a babyface promotion, but they will buy it as a heel promotion, right? They will buy that, there's things about WWE that you hate. I don't think anybody needs to stand in the way and be a cheerleader for it. It's different from TNA and, Ring of Honor and AEW and all those promotions that want to be seen as, oh, we do everything right. We do everything the right way. No, WWE is like, okay, we're fucking up. Let a talent go out there and tell us that this match sucks. Go out there and bury this guy. He's not good enough for the spot that he's in. And yeah, that's tough. But that's what being the big dog is about. That's that segment where John Cena went in there and destroyed Austin Theory. That's the stuff that makes you or breaks you in WWE. That's the stuff that people do want to see. That's the stuff that's memorable. So from that perspective, I'm not a big fan of Rollins' promo, but it fits into who he is, or at least what the audience thinks he is, what they have believed he has been since Punk started talking in 2014, 2015. They always believed that Seth Rollins was a bootlicker and a kiss ass and a backstabber and a traitor. And they're basically using that as part of the story. But the problem with that is everybody knows that's what Seth Rollins is. So it didn't sting as much as what Rollins was saying about Punk. When Rollins was saying about Punk had a little bit more weight to it. And part of it is like, yeah, Drew McIntyre said some of this stuff already. And you want to make sure that you're not repeating the same things over and over again in these promo segments. But you do need to get some of this stuff off your chest. And some of this stuff is personal between these guys, and they're working it out. In the promo, they're going to work it out in the ring. So I think it was a fantastic segment. It was a great segment. Very professional as well. I look forward to their match. I think it should main event the show probably at this point. There seems to be no extra energy being put into Solo and Roman. So I'm guessing Punk and Rollins are going to be the main event. And I'm not looking forward to that match ending in a roll-up. Where somebody grabs the ropes or a foot on the ropes or a small package or anything like that. I look for something decisive to win. And I would expect CM Punk's going to win. At least I would believe so. It would be a huge favor if Rollins was to beat Punk clean in the first match. That would be something. That would be interesting. But I definitely think they're going more than one. But overall, that's Monday Night Raw. This is the strong suit of the Triple H era, is allowing some of these guys to go out there mildly scripted. Clearly, they talked about this stuff beforehand, but it doesn't sound like anybody is reading from a sheet of paper what somebody else wrote for them. That's the one strong thing about the Triple H era that I can say is better than what's going on with Vince. Is, everything felt like a sketch comedy with Vince. This feels like, a little bit looser. And that works for the top guys. It doesn't do favors for everybody. The fact is, you got Gunther, who's the world champion on this show. He hasn't been on this show. He has no contenders ready. And Braun Breaker, again, is not on this show and has no contenders. These are two top singles champions on the brand. And they have no contenders, and they're not even featured. They're mentioned in passing by people. They're not even focused on. They're not targeted or anything. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And goes to show how terrible Triple H has booked the show from top to bottom. The show is very top heavy. You're really, really, really going to care about what Punk and Rollins and Drew and Roman and all of those guys are doing. You ain't going to give a damn about the Intercontinental title or the tag team championships or anything like that. All that stuff, it just comes and goes. You don't got to concern yourself with it. And that's a bad product, especially if this show is going to be 3 hours. Then you got to put some level of interest into the other elements of the show. You can't take 2 months off and be like, oh, well, we're selling out all these venues. We can just take 2 months off and not produce anything worth a damn, except for maybe one segment a week. And as long as that one segment a week hits, we can get away with saying our show is good. Get bent, you know? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. No one does it better.